long before nuclear fears, long before the Book of Revelation, before even the first civilizations rose and fell, there were people who looked at the stars, at the forests, at the endless snows, and they saw the end. They did not imagine it as sudden or random. Number to them, it was written, inevitable, prophesied. The Vikings, those fierce people of the north, held within their myths a story unlike any other, a myth not just of gods and monsters, but of death, fire, and the rebirth of all things. They called it Ragnarok, and it may be one of the most haunting and strangely relevant visions of the apocalypse ever told. In the cold, unforgiving lands of ancient Scandinavia, where winters were endless and the auroras danced across the sky like fire spirits, the Norse believed the world was shaped like a massive tree, Yggdrasil, the world tree. Its roots and branches connected 9 realms, each holding a part of existence. Asgard, home of the gods; Midgard, the world of men; Jotunheim, the land of giants; and far below, the icy realm of Hel, where the dead found their rest. These realms were not distant fantasies. They were real, woven into the fabric of everyday life. The gods themselves, powerful yet mortal, watched over this cosmic structure, knowing full well that one day it would all fall apart. The Norse gods were not like those in other ancient myths. They were not perfect. They made mistakes. They grew old, and perhaps most haunting of all, they knew their end. Odin, the All-Father, ruler of Asgard, was a god of wisdom, war, poetry, and sacrifice. He gave up one of his eyes in exchange for divine knowledge. He hung himself from the world tree for 9 nights to unlock the secrets of the runes. And when he looked into fate, he saw it. A vision of his own death. A vision of his sons, slain. A world swallowed by fire and frost. And yet, he did not run from it. He prepared. But while Odin sought knowledge, others sowed chaos. Chief among them was Loki, a trickster god of fire and mischief. Neither fully evil nor truly good, Loki represented pure chaos, and it was through him that fate twisted into nightmare. Loki's 3 monstrous children became central players in the doom to come. The first was Fenrir, a giant wolf, destined to devour Odin himself. The second was Jormungandr, the world serpent, so massive he wrapped around the earth and held his own tail. The third was Hel, a half-living, half-dead goddess who ruled over the forgotten souls of the underworld. The gods feared these children, and in their fear, they made decisions that only deepened their doom. Fenrir was bound in unbreakable chains, hidden away from the world. Jormungandr was thrown into the ocean's depths, where he would grow until he could encircle the earth. Hel was sent to rule over the realm of the dead. But exile does not erase fate, it delays it. Beneath the surface of the world, the storm was growing, and the first sign of Ragnarök was cold, Fimbul winter. The name means mighty winter. It is no ordinary snowstorm. It is a winter that lasts 3 full years, without spring, without sun, without hope. The earth freezes, crops die, animals vanish, humanity collapses into itself, people abandon honor, brothers slay brothers, no law, no mercy, no morality. A silence falls over the land, a cold so deep that even the gods feel it in their bones. And in the skies above, 2 great wolves, Skull and Hati, who had chased the sun and moon for all of time, finally succeed. They catch and devour their prey. Light vanishes from the world. Day becomes eternal night. The stars fade, and then 3 roosters crow. One in Asgard, warning the gods. One in Jotunheim, waking the giants. And one in Helheim, stirring the dead. The alarm has sounded across the 9 realms, and fate, once whispered, now roars. the great world tree begins to tremble. The mountains shake, the oceans boil, the chains that bound Fenrir snap like thread. The mighty wolf emerges, his jaw so wide it could swallow the sky. Jörmungandr rises from the depths, his venomous breath poisoning the air. Loki, finally free, joins the army of the giants, not out of hatred, but out of destiny. The frost giants march toward Asgard. The fire giants, led by the blazing demon Surtr, come from the realm of Muspelheim with a sword that burns brighter than the sun. The Bifrost, the rainbow bridge connecting Midgard to Asgard, shatters under the weight of the invaders. Heimdall, the guardian of the gods, sounds his horn for the final time. The gods don their armor. Thor raises Mjolnir. Odin mounts his 8-legged horse Sleipnir and rides to meet fate itself. Not to stop it, but to face it. This is not a battle to save the world. It is a battle to complete it. The battle begins not with words, but with war cries that shake the roots of Yggdrasil. Across the shattered bridge, giants thunder toward Asgard, each step cracking the earth beneath them. Their breath is frost, their fists like stone. Behind them comes Loki, his eyes filled not with hatred, but with fate. He does not smile now. There is no more mischief left in the world, only destiny. The gods stand ready. Odin, cloaked in ravens and wisdom, leads the charge, knowing full well he rides to his death. In the chaos, the first great clash begins. Odin finds himself face to face with Fenrir, the monstrous wolf born of prophecy and pain. Fenrir, whose very existence was shaped by fear and betrayal. The wolf lunges. The father of gods fights with all the fury of the universe behind him. But the prophecy cannot be undone. Fenrir tears into Odin, swallowing him whole. The king of Asgard dies, not with a scream, but in silence, his wisdom absorbed into the abyss. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Thor meets his fate. Jörmungandr rises from the sea like a mountain of scales, his venom turning the skies black. The thunder god charges, lightning screaming in his veins, Mjolnir in hand. It is a battle written in legend. Thor strikes the serpent with divine fury, shattering its bones and cracking the earth. The beast writhes, collapsing into death. But even in its end, Jörmungandr fulfills its role. A final breath of poison escapes its fangs, and Thor, the god of strength, takes 9 steps before collapsing, lifeless. Victory, at a cost no one can bear. Heimdall, the ever-watchful guardian, meets Loki on the field. They clash not as friends, but as ancient opposites. Light against chaos. Duty against rebellion. Their battle is fierce and deeply personal. They strike each other down simultaneously, falling side by side as the sky burns above them. There is no celebration, no triumph, only the sound of the end coming closer. And then comes Surtr. From the realm of fire, the fire giant strides across the battlefield, his sword a blaze of pure destruction. Flames leap from his footsteps. The sky cracks. The seas boil. Surtr does not speak. He simply moves toward the center of the cosmos, toward the world tree, and plunges his burning blade into its roots. Yggdrasil trembles. It screams, if a tree can scream. And from that wound, the world begins to die. The realms collapse. Asgard crumbles. Midgard, the world of men, is swallowed by the sea. Mountains are torn apart. The oceans rise, devouring forests and cities alike. Fire rains from above. Ice rushes in from the edges of creation. It is not a slow ending. It is violent, chaotic, divine. The great tapestry that once held the world together unravels in moments, but then silence. From the ruins, from the ash, from the shattered bones of gods and giants, something begins to stir. A whisper in the darkness, a flicker of light beneath the waves, and slowly, a new world begins to rise, not rebuilt, reborn. The earth emerges again, green and pure, untouched by the fire. Rivers flow once more. The sun returns, newly birthed by the sky. Trees grow where once there was only ash. Mountains rise, no longer cracked by war. And from this new land, two humans step into the light. Leif and Lifthrasir, survivors who hid in the forests, protected by the bark of Yggdrasil itself. They are the seeds of a new humanity, born not in fear, but in hope. Not all the gods are gone. Some return. Balder, the radiant god of light and beauty, once slain by a trick of fate, walks the earth again. Hodr, his blind brother, who unknowingly killed him, is also returned, and with him, redemption. A few of the younger gods emerge from the shadows, those who were not meant to die, but to guide the world that comes next. This is the cycle. Ragnarok is not just an ending, it is a reckoning, a purge, a necessary destruction to make way for rebirth. The Norse didn't see time as linear. To them, the world is a wheel. What dies will rise again. What ends begins anew. And every time the cycle repeats, something is gained. Something is learned, even if the price is everything. But what makes this myth so haunting is not just its epic scale or its fiery conclusion. It is the deep, quiet acceptance of fate. The gods knew they would die. They saw the signs. They prepared, not to escape it, but to face it with honor. And in doing so, they gave the world something more powerful than victory. They gave it meaning. There is no salvation in Ragnarok, no last-minute miracle, no chosen one to reverse the ending. There is only the courage to face the storm. And that is perhaps the most human part of this divine myth. It is a mirror, a reflection of our own fears and our own age. Climate change, war, collapse, disconnection. Like the Norse gods, we too live under the shadow of endings. We too hear the whisper of something ancient breaking down. But just like the myth, there is also a promise that after the burning, after the silence, there is life. The world begins again. Fire, ice, chaos, silence. The story of Ragnarok is not just myth, it is memory. Not a literal one, perhaps, but a spiritual memory, encoded in the bones of a people who lived close to death, to nature, to the unpredictable forces of the world around them. The Vikings didn't imagine a world that could be saved. They imagined one that must fall, so it could rise again, stronger, purer, and more balanced. This wasn't fear-mongering. It was truth as they saw it. To them, fate was not an enemy, it was a fact. In Norse culture, fate was known as wyrd, a woven pattern of destiny that not even gods could escape. The Norns, three mystical women, sat at the roots of Yggdrasil, spinning the threads of time. Past, present, future. They carved fate into the bark of the world tree itself. Odin, despite all his wisdom, could not change what was to come. Thor, despite all his strength, could not survive the serpent's poison. These were not failures. These were fulfillments. And in that idea lies something deeply profound, a lesson buried in myth. Because Ragnarok is not about stopping the end. It's about meeting it with honor. To the Norse, courage wasn't about winning. It was about standing firm, even when you knew you would lose. Odin riding into battle knowing he will die. Thor facing a serpent he cannot survive. Heimdall guarding the bridge, even as it cracks beneath him. There is beauty in that kind of defiance. It's not heroic fantasy. It's existential truth. And perhaps that's why this myth has lasted. There is also a strange sense of justice in the cycle. Not revenge, not punishment, but balance. The gods, for all their power, were not perfect. They made mistakes. They feared what they didn't understand. They exiled children who were born monstrous instead of seeking their meaning. They tried to control fate rather than accept it. And when the reckoning came, it didn't just kill the guilty. It cleared the board. It gave space for something new, not better, but reborn. That's the key. Rebirth. In Norse thought, nothing ends without giving birth to something else. After all the fire, the ice, the death, a new sun rises. Two humans emerge. Some gods return. Green returns to the earth. There's no salvation, but there is survival. That idea is powerful, especially today. Because in our time, in this age of extinction warnings, rising seas, political collapse, and spiritual fatigue, the myth of Ragnarök feels eerily familiar. We, too, face a kind of Fimble winter, not of snow and ice, but of disconnection. A spiritual coldness, a moral winter. Brothers do turn on brothers. Empires tremble. The sky burns in wildfires and wars. The earth shifts beneath our feet. And just like in the myth, the old systems strain under their own weight. Maybe that's why Ragnarök still matters, because it gives shape to the chaos we're living through. It reminds us that collapse is not the end, it's a phase. Painful, violent, yes, but also cleansing. And just as in the myth, what emerges after might be something new, not perfect, not magical, but necessary, human. And there's another layer too, a spiritual one. In many ways, Ragnarök is a myth of ego death, a shattering of what we cling to, power, control, permanence. It strips the world to its bones, and in that ruin is truth. The gods die, the monsters die, but so do the illusions, and from that emptiness comes life. The serpent dies, and the sea becomes still. The wolf dies, and the sun returns. Fire burns the tree, but its seeds survive. This is not fantasy. This is transformation. And while the Norse may not have had the language for psychology or spiritual awakening, they understood the idea of surrender. They told a story that begins in certainty, walks through terror, and ends in peace. There's a quiet bravery in that. In a world so obsessed with winning, dominating, surviving at all costs, Ragnarök teaches a different kind of courage. The courage to let go. The courage to fall with dignity. The courage to face the end, not with fear, but with purpose. Because in Norse myth, to die in battle was the highest honor. Not because death was glorious, but because it was honest. You gave everything. You did not run. And when the end came, you met it face to face. Maybe that's the secret behind the myth's power. It doesn't pretend we can avoid the end. It teaches us how to face it well, and maybe to be reborn. So what are we left with? A world reduced to ash, gods fallen, monsters gone, oceans risen. And from that silence, life. Ragnarök doesn't offer comfort. It doesn't promise rescue or heroic salvation. What it gives is something far more difficult and more honest. It gives us acceptance. The Norse didn't fear the end as punishment. They saw it as part of the natural order. Their gods weren't invincible. They lived, fought, and died, bound by fate like everything else. Odin, Thor, Freyr, all powerful, all doomed. Not because they were weak, but because they were part of the cycle. This cycle, creation, destruction, rebirth, is at the heart of Norse thought. It isn't just a myth about gods dying. It's about letting go, about surrendering control, about making room for something new by allowing the old to fall away. That's why Ragnarök still matters. It's not just ancient prophecy, it's a reflection of us. We live in an age full of endings. Climate, conflict, culture, so much feels like it's crumbling. We're watching systems fail, old stories unravel, The world, in many ways, feels like it's already burning, and yet Ragnarok doesn't leave us in despair. After the flames, after the flood, something green grows. A new sun rises. Two humans step into the light, not rulers, not warriors, just people, survivors, ready to begin again. There's something beautiful in that. No false hope, no fantasy, just the quiet truth. Even after everything breaks, we can still move forward. Ragnarok isn't a myth of doom, it's a myth of renewal. It teaches us that what ends isn't gone forever. That in loss, there's a path to something real, something human. It asks us, what are you willing to release? What illusions will you let burn? What will you carry into the next world? Because when the fire fades and the ice melts, it won't be gods or monsters who remain. It will be us, not perfect, not divine, but alive. And perhaps that's all we ever needed to be. If you found meaning in this story, if you want to explore more forgotten myths, dark histories, and ancient truths, step deeper into the silence with us. Subscribe to the Silent Lodge and let the next legend begin.